welcome all the way from Dallas, Texas, America's #1 show band, Texas the Band. Wait, Emma, do you know who that is?
Yeah.
You're going to do an impression of her?
Yeah.
All right. Emma Taylor.
America has decided the winner of America's Got Talent, the winner of the title Best New Act in America, and the winner of $1 million is... Fator!
Do you believe in life after love? I could feel something inside me say, I really don't think you're strong enough, no.
Gather round, the Candyman is here. What kind of candy do you want? Sweet chocolate? Chocolate malted candy? Gumdrops? Anything you want, you come to the right man, because I'm the Candyman. Who can take a sunrise, sprinkle it with dew, gather it in chocolate and a miracle or two. The Candyman, oh, the Candyman can. The Candyman can. The Candyman can, cause he mixes it with love and makes the world taste good.
Honky cat, living in the city ain't where he's at. It's like trying to find gold in a silver mine. It's like trying to drink whiskey, oh, from a bottle of wine.
Hello and welcome to Landon Live. My name is Landon Harvey, and today we have singer, celebrity impressionist, and ventriloquist Terry Fator. Terry, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing really good. Good talking to you, Landon.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So let's just get right into it. How did you get into ventriloquism?
I was 10 years old, and I had seen ventriloquists, come to my church and stuff, and they were absolutely terrible. And I knew they were terrible even at like 4 and 5 years old. I remember one time this ventriloquist, and here I'm like I think I was 4, and this ventriloquist had this puppet in church, and they were talking about Jesus and his terrattles. And I'm thinking, what is a terrattle? And it wasn't until I was old enough to understand and I started doing ventriloquism that he couldn't say parable. And so I'm like, okay. So even as a kid, I was like, but it always fascinated me. It was interesting. And, when I would see people like Edgar Bergen, of course, Jimmy Nelson, Paul Winchell, Sherry Lewis, it was always fascinating as a kid. And then, of course, I got into the Muppets once I started watching Sesame Street and the Muppet Show. But as 10 years old, I accidentally found a book on how to be a ventriloquist, just kind of came across it in my school library. And really the reason I decided to do it was because there was a lot of kids that were doing things in the school talent shows. And every year I tried out for the talent show. I get in the talent show and I would sing, and I did magic one time. I tried to do hypnosis one year. I mean, this is as a kid. And I thought, there's nobody doing ventriloquism in the talent shows. So I'll try this. And so I just got the book, and I found out early on that I could do ventriloquism. And, so I got my little puppet at Sears, $10 for a Willie Talk. I have him hanging up, not by a noose, but in a shadow box in my dressing room at the Mirage. And the rest is history. I fell in love with the art. I actually joined the North American Association of Ventriloquists back when Clinton Detweiler ran it. And I got as many books as I could afford, the little dialogue books and all the little things to help me learn how to do it. But I just fell in love with it. I decided when I was about 11 that I wanted to be a professional ventriloquist for a living.
Wow, that's amazing. How did ventriloquism progress through your career?
Well, I mean, it helped to have other vents to watch. I mean, obviously, if it's, I'm assuming mostly ventriloquists are watching this, and we all know Willie Tyler and Lester, and to see him and Jay Johnson, I think those are two. As a teenager, those were the two I saw on television all the time in the '80s, way before your time. And they would be on game shows, and they would be on talk shows, and of course, Jay Johnson was on an old sitcom called Soap. And their skills were so unbelievably good. And so just to watch them and study them. And then when I was young, when I was in my maybe 20s, Ron Lucas put out his, it must have been in the mid 80s, I think. So yeah, I'd have been close to 30 when that happened. But Ron Lucas put out a thing on Disney Channel, and I had a video cassette recorder back when they were new, and they had just come out. I recorded that, and then Jeff Dunham had done a show on Showtime, and it was only about a 10 or 15 minute routine, but it had Peanut and Jose Jalapeno. And I studied those videos. I swear I watched them 5 times a day for 2-3 years. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I really did. Right. I studied their technique. I studied their how they would change from one puppet to another. I studied character development, because my dream was to one day have my own ventriloquism show. And you showed the clip of Texas the Band. And I was a singer, so I could sing. I didn't even know I was an impressionist, though, until I was in my mid-30s, probably. And somebody had to point it out to me that I was an impressionist. I just thought anyone who sang would, if they wanted to, they could sing like the original artist. And somebody, I made a comment like that one time, and somebody said, "Terry, you're the only person I've ever known that can do that can actually sing like anybody you want to." Right. And it wasn't until a lot later that I decided to mix. It was in 2015. 2005, not 15. 2005 that I decided to make my entire show about being a ventriloquist. I went solo as a ventriloquist in 2002, and I had a band from 1988 to 2002. So,
what was that like with Texas the Band?
Oh, it was so much fun. We were a show band, and the funny thing is, I noticed that it said America's #1 show band, and people would always ask us about that. They'd say, "Oh, how did you get to be America's #1 show band?" And people didn't realize that we just made that up. We just said that's what we started calling ourselves. And the funny thing is, people believe what you tell them. So if you say, America's most amazing ventriloquist, and you make that your logo, people are not going to question how that came about, Now I could say I'm the winner of America's Got Talent because I won America's Got Talent. But if you wanted to say, America's most original ventriloquist, people never question where that came from. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're out there and you're trying to come up with the goods, make sure you come up with something that makes you sound really amazing and different than others, and you have to back it up. If you're not one of the most amazing ventriloquists, I wouldn't say that, because people are going to immediately say, "Who the heck said this?" But if you have some pretty good skills, they're never even going to question it.
Wow. So were you doing the impressions? Did you even have puppets in your show during Texas the Band? And when did you start doing impressions? Was that when you were in Texas the Band, or was that afterward?
No, it was during Texas the Band. Of course, I loved ventriloquism too much to just go straight as a band. In fact, there's a little story behind that. In I think it was 1991, Warner Brothers came out and saw somebody from Warner Brothers had seen us at a bar. We were a bar band until we went into fairs and festivals, and then started doing fairs, festivals, and corporate parties.
Sure.
And we were always a big show, and I loved doing ventriloquism. So every maybe 10 to 15 minutes in the show, I would do impressions. Again, I didn't know I was doing impressions, but I would sing George Strait, and then I'd go right into Ozzy Osbourne, and then I'd go into Garth Brooks, and then I'd go right into Styx, and then we were doing so. But I didn't realize I was doing the impressions. I just thought that's what you did when you wanted to sing a song. You sang it like the original artist. It came very naturally for me, and So this representative from Warner Brothers Records came out and saw us, and they loved us, and they said, "You guys are really talented, but we're going to send somebody out for 6 months with you, and we're going to help groom you to become a signed act, a big, signed band."
Oh,
Yeah, and so for 6 months they were kind of grooming us. They made me take out all the ventriloquism, they made me take out all the comedy, they made me take out all the impressions, and they wanted me to sing everything in my own voice. And I've never been more unhappy and miserable. And so about maybe it wasn't 6 weeks in, I told the rest of the guys, I said, "Guys, I would rather be working at Taco Bell than doing this. I don't like this. This is not fun for me. It's a drudgery. It's a misery to get up and get on stage. So I'm going to go out and do ventriloquism, and you guys can keep the band." And they all said, we kind of enjoyed the fun, because they were entertainers too. We had a drummer that would balance chickens, rubber chickens on his nose while he played the drums. We were all about having fun and enjoying ourselves. And just being a regular band that just played music and didn't do anything, it just wasn't fun. So I made that choice that I wanted to do ventriloquism. But my dream was to have my own ventriloquism show, which is why I went solo in 2002, because I finally, the guys wanted to go back to bars, and they said, "We really want to just play music." And I said, "This is a perfect time for us to separate, because I've always wanted to have a ventriloquist show like Ron Lucas and Jeff Dunham that I'd seen in the 80s. And I said, "Man, I'm dying to do this." And so I started putting together my show. And then I saw an impressionist in Vegas who did singing impressions. Mm-hmm. And it was then that I realized, and I was watching every time he would go into a different singing impression, the crowd went crazy. And it was in 2005 when I did that. Danny Gans was his name. He's passed away, unfortunately, since then. And so I left that theater thinking, I'm going to do that. But instead, there's already a Danny Gans. I don't want people to say, "Oh, it's Danny Gans light." So I said, I'm a ventriloquist. I'm just going to start having my puppets do impressions. So the next day, I had a show in Logandale, which is the Clark County Fair, and Las Vegas is in Clark County. So it's kind of the fair for this area. And I just had one of my puppets sing "Friends in Low Places," and the audience jaws dropped. And I said, "Okay, I'm onto something here." So I knew I'd found my niche.
Wow. So at that time that you started doing these songs and these impressions, did you have characters that fit them, or did you later have to acquire those characters?
No, I did. I would create characters. Now, Walter's, you see him on the back behind me. I've got my video playing behind me. That Walter's my very first puppet. I got my very first professional puppet. He was my 18th birthday present from my family, and he went through several incarnations until I started playing country bars in Texas. We named our band Texas, the band to try to sound country, and we thought there was money in country music at country bars. So I went back and I was able to create this country character, and his name was Walter Airedale. And I had created that character, I think, in 1984 when Walter Mondale was running against Ronald Reagan, and I wanted a political character, and he had a Minnesotan accent, and I named him Walter Airedale so that he could be like he's like, "Oh, I'm running for president. My name is Walter Airedale," And so then once that was all over, and who knows who Walter Mondale is anymore. When I decided to play country bars, I just put a T in there, and I thought, man, that sounds really country. And I put a little cowboy hat on him, got his little cowboy suit, as you see it behind me. Mm-hmm. I put a little cowboy suit on him and a cowboy hat, and I gave him that country accent, which was easy because I grew up in Texas. I used to actually talk like Walter. I went to college and took radio and television and learned how not to have an accent. But then I kept that old accent for Walter T. Airedale there. So,
wow, that's absolutely fascinating. I always love hearing the backstories on how characters were created and how that adjustment came into play. So, America's Got Talent, how did that come to be? Did you go to them? Did they find you? What's the story behind that?
Absolutely, they found me. I had some people that kind of mentioned it to me the first season, mm-hmm. and my first reaction was, absolutely no way am I going to do a reality show. It sounded like the Gong Show to me. So I said, absolutely not. This is horrible. And so anyway, I was playing fairs that year, a lot of fairs. I was doing fairs. That was my bread and butter. And then I was doing schools in the off season, but this was in the summer of 2006. And every time I would get done with one of the fairs, and my crowds were growing because they were fascinated by the ventriloquism and impressions. So whereas before I started doing the ventriloquism impressions, every time I changed puppets, I would lose my entire crowd. So I'd have 20 people in the audience at a fair. I would finish a routine and go to get my next puppet, and everybody would leave, and then I would have to start over. Well, once I started having the puppets do impressions, nobody left because they wanted to see what impression the next puppet was going to do. So I was doing, 20, 30, 40 impressions in every show of singers, and people were fascinated. Well, afterwards, people started saying, "Are you watching America's Got Talent?" And I actually was. I was trying to keep an eye on it because I wanted to see the format and find out if it was a good show. And I was very impressed. It was very respectful to the talent. It was not at all mean-spirited. I thought it was going to be, and it wasn't. So I was intrigued, but not intrigued enough to do it. But apparently, thousands of people from all over the country were emailing NBC and telling them they had seen this ventriloquist who did impressions of singers at a fair. And they called me. I get this phone call, and I look at my phone, and it says NBC. And I'm like, NBC? So I answer the phone. And they're like, we're getting emails from everybody and letters from people all over the country. Would you be interested in auditioning? And I said, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd love to. So, they happened to, we looked at my schedule, and they said, well, we're doing something in LA. And I said, well, I'm playing a school in LA. And I think I finished at 2:30 or 3. And I went straight over to the LA Convention Center, and the rest is history.
Wow. That's amazing. It's so neat to hear. We had Darren Carr on a few days ago, and I talked to him about Australia's Got Talent because he was on that, and they had called him, and it was interesting hearing his story and his interaction with it, and how he wanted to see how being a ventriloquist on there would pan out. We have a question over here. What was your most impactful interaction on or off air during AGT?
There was. Probably, there wasn't a whole lot of interaction with people that were on, people behind the scenes. Although occasionally, I'd be stuck in an elevator with, Piers Morgan. And one time I was there with Piers Morgan and David Hasselhoff. And I threw my voice, and I was like, "Let me out of here. Someone let me out." And they were so blown away. And I was just doing it just for fun. And they were like, "Oh my God, we didn't know you could do that," And so, so I did. So I got to know them. But I think probably the most meaningful was the night I won. We went to a little club in Hollywood. It was that's where they did the show at the time. I think they do it in Hollywood again. It moved to New York when Howard Stern was on it. But it moved back to Hollywood. And we went to this little club, and they were doing a wrap-up party. And all 3 judges were there. And I went, and I was kind of milling about. And David Hasselhoff comes up, and he taps me on the shoulder, and he pulls me aside. And he says, "Terry, I'm just going to give you a bit of advice. I think your talent's incredible. I think your talent's amazing. But I want you to remember, don't ever forget your fans, because without your fans, you wouldn't have this gig." And he said, "Yes, you just always have to be respectful and grateful to your fans." I thought that was really sweet. It's not something I think I really needed to hear, just because there's no way I would forget my fans, because I spent my whole life wishing I had fans, when I was 42. Right. So I never had real fans until then. And so it was something that I definitely would have done anyway, but I just thought that was a very cool thing for David to do.
Wow. We have a comment here. Randy Gentry said, Terry singing with Kermit had to be pretty cool.
Oh, there are no words. I mean, how do you even? And the thing is that was a surprise for me. Oh, really? I mean, not the actual performance, but what happened was they told me. I had already talked to Simon a couple of times, and that wasn't unusual, because Simon is the executive producer, and he is personally involved. So he didn't just call me; he called a lot of people. At one point, he called me and told me that he really wanted me to do Tony Bennett. Sing Tony Bennett, and I said, "Great, I'm in. I'll do it. You bet. You said to, and yeah, I'm in." So, okay, I just lost my train of thought. What was the question again? Or the comment?
We were talking about Kermit the Frog.
Kermit the Frog. Oh, yes. So they told me, that's why I was mentioning Simon, is they said, "Simon has a question for you. So you need to be in this room, and he's going to call." And I said, "Oh, yeah, of course. So I go and I get in the room, and I'm sitting there, and they've got the cameras rolling, and I'm thinking, they're going to do some behind the scenes thing. And so the phone rings, I pick it up, and I said, hello. And they said, hello, Terry, this is Kermit the Frog. And I literally just freaked out because it was Kermit the Frog calling me. He says, I heard you're a big fan of mine and I'd like to perform with you. Is that okay? I said, yeah, I would love to perform with you. So that whole thing was surreal. It was just surreal. I mean, they tore the whole studio apart. They made the judges into Muppets. It was beautiful because all the judges that were Muppets were ones who don't talk. Animal, Beaker, and then who was the other one? Oh, and the Swedish Chef. So so they were the judges. And then there I am with Kermit. And I think it was just as thrilling to have the chickens sing backup with me when they were singing with it. What an unbelievable experience that was. Yeah, that was quite incredible.
Wow. That's super neat. Did you get to meet the puppeteers behind the characters? I
did, yes. And Steve Whitmire, who is no longer the Kermit, but at the time, we actually developed a very, not a close relationship, but a friendship, and we were very friendly. He came to the show one time and saw my Winston do Kermit the Frog, and he said, "Wow," he said, "I think you were channeling Jim Henson tonight," and so that was quite a. And he signed the actual Kermit that I had that I was using before. The reason Winston the Impersonating Turtle didn't even exist, I had a Kermit the Frog puppet, and I wanted to use him on America's Got Talent, and the Muppets wouldn't allow me to. So they actually said, "No, you can't. You can do the voice, but you can't do the puppet." So I created Winston. I just found this puppet online and had him shipped there overnight.
Wow. Wow. Well, we have a comment from Steve Axtell. He said, tell us about what your voice doctor said about your skill.
My voice doctor is Dr. Wayne Kirkham. If you're anywhere near Dallas and you have voice issues, I highly recommend him. Dr. Wayne Kirkham, Karkham. He's the voice doctor to the stars, and I'm not kidding you. He did Luciano Pavarotti. He did Frank Sinatra. He did Ronald Reagan. He still does Celine Dion. The top vocals in the world. And he has said, in fact, he did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, and they asked him what his most unusual clients have been. And he mentioned me, and he said, what I do is physically impossible. He said, it can't, I don't know how I'm able to get the tones that I'm able to get through this much space in my lips. I don't know, but there's something off and weird about my physiology that allows me to do that.
Wow. Well, I'm curious, what would you be doing if you didn't win AGT?
Ventriloquism. I'd still be doing it. I was working hard. I never had time off. I think all told, I was traveling all over the country, coast to coast, from Maine to California and from Washington State to Florida. I was literally putting, 100,000 miles a year on my car, driving, to shows. And I 9 months out of the year, I was doing schools. I was doing 5 days a week at schools. I never had days off, 5 days a week, every school day. And then I would do runs of fairs during the summer, and that would start in May and June and go all the way in through September. And I would do a 7-day here and a 10-day and an 18-day at this fair. So I think all told, every single year for several years before America's Got Talent, I was performing. I was home maybe 3 to 4 weeks a year, which is why I was married for so long, because we didn't have to see each other. My first wife, we literally never saw each other. And she even said, it was funny, when I got the Mirage gig, she would tell people right out, she would say, I don't know how I'm going to stand being with him. She didn't like me. She really didn't like me. She's like, it's fine. He's on the road all the time. I don't know how I'm going to stand having him home all the time. So that's not a good basis for a good marriage. Now my wife Angie loves having me. We have had so much fun during this quarantine. But we're hardly ever apart anyway. We've been together now. We just met each other about 5 years ago, April 26th, I believe it was. Okay. And we hardly ever spend any time apart. So we're not having a problem at all with the quarantine.
Yeah. What are you guys doing to keep busy? You talked earlier about some games and stuff that you guys have been.
Oh. Yeah, well, I work during the day on. This is kind of my studio. It's actually my home theater, and the video playing behind me is my home theater broadcasting it behind me on the screen. But I will set up a green screen And then I sit here with my puppets and I do my recordings that I'm putting on YouTube and things. Having a lot of fun doing that, and I'm also writing scripts for the upcoming shows and things like that. And my wife is busy working on the business. She runs all of my business things that have to do with my companies and my career. And then at 5 or 6 o'clock, when she's done and she can't make business phone calls anymore, she comes and gets me, and we lay in bed and play Animal Crossing. We've been playing Animal Crossing every single day since March 20th, the day it came out. And I love it. And she loves it. She's never been more addicted to a game. She said she never thought she would be. We play it all the time. And we watch Hallmark movies. And usually we watch love and romance movies and Hallmark movies while we're playing.
Yeah. Hallmark movies are great. They actually released a bunch of the old Christmas movies when the quarantine started.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I
saw that.
I'm curious. So Angie ran a catering company before you met. Is that right? So how was it? What was the transition like for her going from running this catering company to running Terry Fator and dealing?
It was difficult for her because it was her baby. She had done that for I think 30 years. She had this catering company. It was one of the most successful catering companies in Dallas. That's how I met her. I actually hired her to do a thing for me. And a lot of people, when you look at, I don't judge people anymore, especially celebrities, because my life looks like a tabloid. Here I had this wife for 20 years. Again, the only reason that we were married that long is because we never saw each other. We were together 3 to 4 weeks, and we weren't happy the 3 to 4 weeks we were together. Right. So then it's like, oh, you married a young chick. And it's like, well, the only reason that happened was because I wanted children and I wanted to have a family, and it had been kind of a dream. And my first wife did not want kids. So what did I do? I married this young lady who said she wanted to have kids and said that she was in love with me. And I thought I loved her too. And then immediately, as soon as we got married, she said, I don't want kids. I decided not to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here I am. I just got myself into this mess. Yeah. And luckily, 3 to 4 years in, she's like, I don't like being married to an old guy anymore. I'm like, good, you go your way, go marry a young guy. And and I swore off women. I said, I'm no more women for me. I'm done. I can't have another marriage. I'm over. It's over. And God brought Angie into my life about 6 weeks after making that oath. And I played an event. My sister hired her, knew her through a mutual friend, and hired her to cater the event. And it was a charity event I was doing in Corsicana, Texas. And we met, and we pretty much been inseparable ever since. She's my soulmate, no doubt about it. So thank you, God.
That's so great to hear. And I've met Angie, and she's just one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet, and so kind and such a smart woman. I'm curious, in your show today, how would you define your style of comedy?
I'm really into situational comedy. Okay. I want the humor to come out of the character and now this is not a criticism, but it's an observation, not a criticism. Most ventriloquists are, I have a puppet, the puppet, I say a straight line, the puppet tells a joke. I say a straight line, the puppet tells a joke. I prefer to create characters that the humor can come out of their character. And it was interesting because I have writers that work with me. I pretty much do most of the work in writing, but I do have a writer that's full-time staff. I have 2 writers actually that are full-time staffed with me. And it took him, he's one of the writers, he's one of the top comedy writers in the business. He writes the Academy Awards, he writes the Emmys, he writes, he writes for some of the top comedians on the planet, and he's my full-time writer. And he told me it took 2 to 3 years to understand the fact that my show is very much based on character. And so he would write a line or write a joke or a funny idea, and I would have to tell him, no, Winston would never say that. That sounds more like Dougie, or Walter would never say that. That sounds more like Vicky. And he started to understand it. He's like, oh my gosh, you're right. And so now we don't even have that issue because he immediately knows when he writes an idea or a funny. So that's really what. And if people are out there and they're not understanding what I'm referring to, the best way to find out what I'm talking about is watch Everybody Loves Raymond or Seinfeld. And if you do, there are almost no jokes in those shows at all. You can go an entire episode and not hear one joke. It's all about the humor, the situation. The humor comes from the characters. So it's much harder to write that. And I also don't write dirty humor. I tap dance on the line, but I will not write blatantly dirty. I will not swear. It is always 100% of the time going to be funny when a puppet swears. Always. People are going to laugh. But I just look at it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. If that's how you do it, I'm fine with that. That's totally fine. I just feel like I want to try to do it so that you don't have to feel like you need to go wash your kids' ears out after my show, you know. And kids are automatically attracted to puppets, so I know they're going to be children of the show. Now, I will definitely tell adult jokes that are, you know, hidden in hidden double meanings, and I'm fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I had a line one time, and I still do it in my show. In fact, it's where Vicky. We show her a picture of her on the red carpet, and she's got this slit that goes way up, you know, her leg. And she goes, I said, man, that's quite a slit. And she says, yeah, I know, you can almost see the red carpet. And so it's a funny joke. And I had a guy come up to me afterwards, and he goes, my 6-year-old daughter wants to know what that joke means. And I looked at her, and I said, well, you know, in Hollywood, when they do any award show, they have a red carpet, and the ladies have to walk up the red carpet in order. And the guy looks at me and goes, nice. And so that's really how I like to do it. I like to do it so that if your kid is too young to understand it, that there's going to be a clean explanation for them. And then for those of us who get it, it's just a double laugh for us. So, well, that's just my opinion. I mean, my taste. I'm not criticizing the way other people do their shows. I mean, I love. I was just watching Dave Straussman, and he swears in his show, and it's unbelievable. He is truly one of the most gifted and incredible ventriloquists.
His show is like a production.
Oh, he's unbelievable. Yeah. He's unbelievable. And so there are so many incredible ventriloquists, and I'm certainly not dissing anyone. I'm just giving you my opinion and the way I do. You asked me how.
Production.
Oh, he's unbelievable. Yeah. He's unbelievable. And so there are so many incredible ventriloquists, and I'm certainly not dissing anyone. I'm just giving you my opinion and the way I do. You asked me what I would consider. That's how I consider my show. That's the type of humor I try to write. So
sure. Well, we have Steve Axtell is here joining us, and he said, Vicky. So can you talk a little bit about when Vicky was created and why she was created?
Yeah, that's a Steve Axtell original, as is my Donald Trump puppets. So, and you created my Bernie Sanders, and I'm telling you, in the next few weeks, you're going to be seeing Bernie and Donald. I'm going to do a video with them. I had to see it. Can I do this? Yeah, okay, I can get it both in. Vicky the Cougar came out of, and a lot of my characters have been like this. Vicky the Cougar came out of life experience. You know, we all grew up watching movies where you see these blonde bombshells that have these enormous fake breasts and you know, blonde hair and just they look more like they're made out of plastic than flesh, right. You know. And we've seen the movies and the TV shows. And so in my head as a little Texas boy, I'd never been to Hollywood. I didn't know, you know, I just thought they were movie characters. I didn't know they really existed in real life. So then suddenly I win America's Got Talent, and I'm thrust into that world. And the year afterwards, I was invited to Emmy parties and all kinds of parties, Oscar parties, and all these parties going on in Hollywood. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around at these people. I was even invited to the Playboy Mansion, and look, I'm as heterosexual as it gets, and I hated it. I felt like I needed to take a shower in hand sanitizer after I got out of that place. I hated it, but I had to because the Mirage was actually courting Playboy to see if they could bring him in and as kind of a partnership, and so they wanted their headliner there, and so I was just like. I just got the willies. I love my wife. I'm a one-woman man. I'm not a philanderer, and I wasn't. It was not fun. But I don't like parties. I'm the most boring person in the world. I cannot stand loud music, and I cannot stand all the goings on. I love being in front of people. I don't like being in the crowds. You know, and so parties were horrible. But anyway, I'm looking at these women, and I'm going, oh my God, these are real people. This isn't a Hollywood. They're basing these characters on. And so I decided then and there, I said, I need a cougar puppet, you know. And at the time, the word cougar had really gotten popular. And so, so my first person, the first person I contacted was Steve Axtell. And by the way, speaking of Steve, one of probably the most delightful part of my career has been being able to meet some of my heroes. You know, I had been following Steve Axtell for years before America's Got Talent, and I had looked longingly at his website many times and gotten his catalogs, and at the time I just didn't have any money. I couldn't afford anything that he did, because I mean, I was broke. I was really not making a ton of money. I was just trying to pay the bills. And so, to be able to become friends with people like Steve and Steve Axtell and Dan Horn and some of my, friends that were legends to me. I became dear friends with Clinton Detweiler, and I always considered him an amazing mentor. I even brought he and his wife Delia out to one of my anniversary shows, and it was such an amazing honor. He passed away shortly after that, but wow, what an amazing experience that was to get to know them. So that's one of my favorites. But so my first person to think of was Steve, because he makes the latex puppets, and I'm thinking, how perfect, the latex puppet for a woman who's more latex than human. So
right,
and he did a magnificent job. Vicky is still one of the most popular characters I do.
Wow. So I'm curious, in bringing Vicky into your show, into your writing room, what was it like? Because were your writers before that, I assume that they wrote for stand-up comics and things of that nature. So did you have to adjust their thought process on the fact that they're writing for two people on stage? How was that?
It was for them, because that's what I've been doing since I was 10, so it wasn't an issue for me. But and really, what happens is I do have two writers, but I do most of the writing, and what I do is for example, my writer John Max just recently sent me a script for Dougie that I'm going to be doing. I'm hoping, I'm not positive about it, but one of my dreams was to play comedy clubs before America's Got Talent. I auditioned for them. I would send them my videos, never got a bite. And so and then I won America's Got Talent and rocketed past comedy clubs to being a headliner in Vegas. And so I've never been able to fulfill my dream of doing a comedy club circuit. So as we were looking at this COVID thing, I'm dying to get back on stage and perform again, dying to. I can't wait. And so my agent calls me and he goes, you know what? They're going to start opening comedy clubs at 50%. Would you be interested in? And I said, absolutely, yes, do it. Take it. I want to do it. I can't wait. So we're writing a show specifically for comedy clubs coming up here, hopefully in the summer. I'm not positive it's going to happen, but it looks like it will. And so this is going to be so much fun for me to be able to finally, I'm doing things in reverse. Most people go to the comedy clubs and work their way up, and I'm doing things in reverse. But, anything for a dream. I still haven't done a cruise ship, and it's a dream of mine to play a cruise ship. So one of these days I'm going to play a cruise ship just for fun, just because I want to. But so he sent me the script for Dougie, and he knows what I do. And this is the exchange that we had was so funny, because he said, here's my idea. It's our first draft. And I said, me, I'll take this modeling clay and turn it into a masterpiece, because that's what it is. It's a basic idea, and then I take that idea and I write all the lines and I write the show based on their ideas. And then he texted back to me and he goes, "That's because I work with Michelangelo." And I'm like, I'm the clay for Michelangelo. And I'm like, well, that's very nice of you. I sent the little bashful meme.
Wow. Well, I'm curious, was there ever an impression that you've had to work like the hardest on, maybe that you just had to keep working at till you got it down?
Yeah, the hard ones are the more, and this is not an insult, but the more bland ones.
Okay.
For example, like Frank Sinatra. And I don't mean it's bland in that it's not fun to listen to. He's got an absolutely stunningly beautiful voice, but there's nothing, when I'm doing Dean Martin, you can go, well, the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie or some more. You can put that. Yeah. You see what I mean? You can put those vibratos. Okay. And Michael Jackson, I'm gonna make change for the 100th time. You can find those little vibratos and those little things. Whereas Frank Sinatra's just like, fly me to the moon. So it's like, he's not doing anything that I can, as an impressionist, I can grab a hold of. So that probably took me the longest, was to learn Frank Sinatra.
Okay, yeah, because he's kind of casual in the way he...
Yeah, very, very. And there's nothing, it's easy to do an impression of somebody that has something, when you're doing the Bee Gees, I started a joke, or You can tell by the way I use my walk. That's easy, you know. I mean, you just grab it, you know.
Wow. Well, I'm curious, in your whole career so far, what is the worst memory, or maybe something that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened during a show, that you can recall, and then the best memory?
Well, those are really good questions because I live so in the now. So I live so in the now. Worst memory, I don't have worst memories because I'm a person who probably the best advice, and this does lead into worst memory. The best advice I can give anybody is to not take your show too seriously, and to understand that the audience is not there to watch you do a perfect show. The audience is there to be entertained. And the reason I say that as a worst memory is because when something really bad happens, if you bring the audience into it and make it a part of the joke and make a joke out of it, whether it's something bad that happens to you or one of your puppets or whatever, if you can learn to do that, then you've kind of gone beyond the nerves of, oh my gosh, what if something goes wrong? Because it doesn't matter. Going wrong is a relative thing. It doesn't mean, your job is to entertain. Your job is not to get in there and not do anything wrong. So my worst memory might be something that was one of the funniest things that ever happened. A good example of that is one time I don't know what was going on, but I was distracted. And, we had this whole, we had this whole orchestrated show where everything was placed. And I went back to get Vicky, and I ended up I went back to get Julius, and I ended up on stage with Vicky, the cougar. So I'm standing there, and the funniest thing was, the lights come up, and I look over, and I didn't even know I had Vicky until I look over and realized it's supposed to be Julius, and I went, oh my gosh, and I ran around, I threw her back, and I got Julius, and then I ripped on myself through the puppet for about 5 minutes, and then I had Vicky yelling from back. So what did I do? And people honestly thought, oh my gosh, that was the funniest thing. And they said, and they would ask me, was that part of the show? And I'm like, no, actually, that was a complete accident. And my writer still says it was the funniest thing he's ever seen was when that happened. So I guess my point is that it's hard to, it's really hard for me to look back on anything. And I also have an interesting, it's my makeup, it's my character. I have a filter that kind of blocks out bad. And I had an incredibly traumatic childhood, and yet I have very good memories of being a child, if that makes sense. Because I don't dwell on negatives, and I don't dwell on, I'm a person who forgives easily, and I don't hold bitterness. I let it go. I let things go, and I let God take care of it. I feel like, I've had people do horrible, terrible things to me that, steal millions of dollars. And you know what I do? I just go, well, I'll make more. And I turn it over to God, and I move on, and I don't worry. People are like, you should be suing them. I'm like, I don't want to be locked up in court for 10 years thinking about this. I'd rather think about now and think about how to make my life better now, because I'm just not one of those people. So,
not let them rob you of the present.
What's that?
Oh, just to not let them rob you of the present.
No, yeah, I can't. I refuse to do that. But again, that's my character. My character is just to think about the now and not really focus. So, thinking about the worst thing, I can't really, honestly, I can't think of anything. I always try to make everything fun and enjoyable. So, probably this quarantine is the worst thing that's ever happened, and I'm having a ball.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying it. I miss being on stage, but and of course, I'm in a very fortunate situation that I don't have near as much money as people think I do, because I donate a lot of money to charity, and I've paid my employees incredibly generously. I just feel like there's only so much one person needs in their life, and I have no desire to accumulate bazillions of dollars. I just don't. So, but I have enough to where Angie and I are not struggling, and I know a lot of people out there are struggling, and I certainly empathize with them, because up until America's Got Talent, I was having to go sell my CD collection to try to pay the rent. So it's not like I don't know about this. So about that's part of life, and so I'm fortunate in that. The best thing, obviously, I think the best thing was when I proposed to my wife Angie on stage. quite a that was the best thing that ever happened to me, was meeting her and finding a soulmate, someone who, we were talking before this interview started, and I was telling you the one thing that I love about her is that she doesn't keep score. I've never had anybody in my life, and that includes my own blood relatives, who didn't keep score of what they were doing, and the people that I've been close to have promptly forgotten what I did for them, and feel like they're never paid back for what they do for me. And I've never been that way. I'm the kind of person, I've never loaned anyone anything. If somebody says, I'm desperate, I need some help financially, I give. I don't loan. And then I don't remember that I gave. So it's like, I'm not a person who keeps score, and I married a woman who's exactly the same way. She doesn't keep tabs on all the good things she does. We try to do good things and wonderful things for each other on a daily basis, and neither of us feel like we're getting cheated because the other didn't do as much as we did or whatever. So,
right. Well, I'm curious. Does Angie go with you when you tour?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would never want to be on the road without her. We don't have kids, so we have puppets. So, but I couldn't be away from her for very long. I adore her. So we can't go to sleep without each other. She sleeps. We go to sleep with her on my chest right here, and I scratch her head until we both fall asleep. And then we wake up. We wake up turned in different directions, but that's how we fall asleep every single day since the day we got married. So.
Wow. I'm curious, of all the locations you've traveled for shows, what was your favorite and why?
Wow, there's so many. I probably like Hawaii, but I love doing Florida. It's always fun to go to Florida because when Disneyland's not closed or Disney World's not closed down, we usually stay at one of the resorts at Disney World. And kind of an interesting little side to that. When I was, I think I was 20, and I went to Disney World. I had saved and saved and scraped and saved for years, and I went to Disney, and I got on the monorail, Disney World, and I got on the monorail, and it stopped right there at the Contemporary Hotel, and I looked down and I went, oh my gosh, there's a hotel right here at Disney World, and I sat there and I said, I vow to myself, one day I'm going to stay in this hotel. One day I'm going to have enough money to where I can stay in this hotel. And so, that's what I do as we go. And my wife and I, Angie, we love to be going. So anytime I get to play Florida, I always stay. If I'm within an hour or two of the Disney World property, I stay on property at one of the Disney hotels.
So I'm curious, do you have you ever had a contract with Disney?
I have not. I've done some work with Disney. I did a voice. If you want to hear my voices, look up New York Weenie. It's a Mickey Mouse cartoon. I also auditioned to be the new Kermit the Frog. Did very well from what I heard. And I think the only reason I didn't get it was because I had the Mirage gig. I did. I bet that's, that may not be true, but I've heard that. I also did an audition to be the new Mickey Mouse, and I believe I was beat out by only one person, which is quite an honor. And then I did 3 voices in a Mickey Mouse cartoon called New York Weenie, and it's Mickey Mouse is with Minnie, and he gives her a hot dog, and the actual hot dog, the actual weenie, jumps out of the bun and starts running all over New York. And
I've seen that one.
The voices that I do are the 3 guys playing cards under the bridge. And there are 3 guys, and they're like scruffy, and they're like, I'm all in, And so I did all 3 of those voices, and then afterwards they gave me an actual film cell from that, and it's hanging up in my dressing room. Sorry, my nose is itching so bad right now.
Neat. No worries. And if you have a comment for Terry, make sure to post in the comments. I'm going through those as they come in. So I'm curious. We talked a little bit about it with Vicky, but I'm curious because your show is a blend of some of the top soft puppets with the top hard figures that you can get in today's market. Where's your mind creatively when you go in to create a character? How do you say, I want this to be a hard figure, or I want this one to be a soft puppet? What's your process behind it?
It completely depends on what type of character I'm creating. I know there are some that are exclusively soft puppets, and I'm fine with that. I started with the with the hard puppets. You know, I got a little Willie Talk from Sears, and then I moved up to a deluxe vent figure from North American Association of Ventriloquists, NAAV, or what was it called? It was in Littleton, Colorado. I don't think it was NAA. Maybe it was Mayhair. It was a Mayhair shop. Yeah. And so Clinton, I guess, had taken an old Danny O'Day, I think it was, and he had painted it with freckles and put a hair on it and made it so you can move the eyebrows and eyes and everything. It was beautiful. I think it cost me $99. And I used that. I don't have that one. I lost that along the way. And then I got Walter Teardale as my first real puppet. And that's all I did. But I for a while was the hard puppet. And then some friends gave me the little Emma Taylor puppet that I have that I used on America's Got Talent. And the reason I had to change them, I would probably still be using them, but the guy who actually made those puppets sued me for using them on America's Got Talent without his permission. I was clueless. Really? I didn't know you had to. Yeah, I didn't know you had to. So he actually sued me. And so we had to come to a pretty hefty settlement. And then I actually got the rights to use them, but I'm like, screw you, man. You sued me, so I wouldn't use this puppet. So I went and got me a new Winston and a new Emma.
I'm curious how much sales he's made off of you with all those turtle and Emma Taylor puppets.
Well, that was so weird because I wanted to actually go into business with him and say, hey, why don't we just sell these at my show? And he wasn't having it. He didn't want any part of it. He was mad. He was angry, and I just didn't know. I thought once you bought a puppet, I had no clue. I mean, I've learned a lot since all the success.
Right. Well, one of the coolest characters I think I've seen in your show is the Justin Bieber character, just because it's unlike anything else you've ever seen a ventriloquist use. Can you talk a little bit about that? And of course, I'm sure Chance is here with us. So how you met Chance and how he built a few different things for you.
Oh, Chance is, how do you even describe Chance? Just so incredibly talented, as are you, by the way, Landon. I've been following your career for a long time. And as you know, I have several of your puppets, and your stuff is you're one talented puppet maker and an amazing ventriloquist as well. Nice. But Chance and I met at a ventriloquist convention, which I absolutely adore going to, by the way. I don't avoid it for any other reason other than I'm too busy and I just can't get there. I'm still to the point where if I can get a paying gig, I'm going to take it. Right. I think every ventriloquist would say that, right? Yeah. So if I'm working, I'd rather be working than not. And so, but I met Chance at this, and if I'm not mistaken, I think me and Chance rode in the same car to go over to the Ventriloquist Museum. And we got to talking, and then I went over to his booth and saw his puppets, and I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing. So I got his number and started working with him. I think, and he have to correct me, but I think the first one he made for me was Michael Jackson, which is freaking amazing. What a beautiful puppet that is. And it was, and then he made my Sammy Davis Jr. And so the whole Justin Bieber, I would love to take credit for that idea, but Chance actually called me. He texted me and he said, call me, I have an idea. I called him back and he said, Terry, I think I have an amazing idea if you're interested. He goes, how about a puppet that has an angel and a devil that appear on their shoulders? And I'm like, you could do that? And he goes, well, no, but I think I could come up with the technology to do it. And I said, oh my God, Chance, that's great. So then, we went back and forth of who it should be. And we felt it needed to be somebody that had angst, that, was constantly getting into trouble and then trying to reform their image. So we went through Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, blah, blah, blah. And then we ended up with Justin. And then it was who's going to be the devil and the angel. And there's no better angel than Dolly Parton, Yeah. And no better devil than Ozzy Osbourne, but it's remarkable. The technique is the actual puppet is phenomenal. And the funny thing about it is that he told us it's very, very, it breaks easily because it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on there. And he said, he goes, you got it. You can't, transport this. This is not something you got to do. And I said, yeah, I got you. And I was doing something for the Golden Knights. And we decided we wanted, Justin and Dolly and Ozzy. And so one time we packed him up and brought him over. And the Dolly head had fallen off. And I'm like, oh. So I called Chance and I'm like, oh my God, we did what you told us not to do. We transported it and we shipped it back to him. And I don't know if we shipped it back or he came in, but he fixed it. And that thing doesn't go anywhere but the Mirage. And then it'll go straight into a warehouse. And then it'll go right over to wherever the new venue will be after the Mirage.
Wow. Well, I'm curious. Do you have any characters with you right now?
I do.
Oh, great.
Yeah, here we go. Let's see.
What's going on?
We're doing.
Oh, Landon,
Hi, Winston.
how are you doing? Where am I supposed to look?
It's just fine. You can just look at him.
Okay. You look good. Yeah.
Thank you. So do you, Winston.
Oh, thank you. Do you like my bow tie?
Yeah, your bow tie looks good.
Thank you.
I do. Can you talk a little bit about how you went through a few different versions of Winston till you got to this one? Can you kind of share that with us? Because I love seeing the creative process.
I don't know anything about that.
Do you mind if I talk?
Yeah, just don't move your lips.
So I'm going to move my lips while I'm talking.
Okay.
So yeah, so as I said, the Winston that I bought, actually the story behind that is, let me try to get him in frame here. So you can see him.
That's much better.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. So the story behind that is that I wanted to use Kermit the Frog, and the Muppets wouldn't allow me to use Kermit the Frog, so I had to have somebody else that could do a Kermit the Frog impression.
That was neat.
Well, not exactly you.
It wasn't.
No. So I went online and I started searching for lizards and snakes and any kind of amphibian or reptile that could do an impression of Kermit the Frog. Mm-hmm. And I found this little puppet at a toy store, and I contacted them and said, can you, no, actually I found it at a toy store in Austin, and I have some dear friends that live in Austin. And I said, would you go there and buy this thing and overnight it to me at America's Got Talent? And they did. I gave them the address. Mm-hmm. I opened the box, and I don't know what it was. I had just recently earlier that year, met a miniature donkey named Winston.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm named after a donkey.
Right.
So, yeah, but we all know who the jackass is here.
Right. Okay.
He wasn't an impersonating donkey, was he?
No.
No. He was very cute, though, very cute. And so then I don't know why I just thought the name Winston. And so I opened the box and I just said, this is Winston the impersonating turtle. And so I said, can you do
Hi, hello, Kermit the Frog here.
Right. So he does Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. So it was a natural.
And then I used that up until I got sued. And then I had been contacted by Puppet Heap, who are the same people that work with the Muppets. They work with Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Kermit the Frog, all the Muppets. And they had said, if you ever want, we'd love to work with you. And so I still had their email. It was right after America's Got Talent. And I called and so I called him up and I said, I'd love to for you to make a new turtle puppet for me.
And I was born.
Right.
Wow. That's super neat. I'm sure they did a few different designs for you as well. And
yeah, they did.
So you could get the right Winston. Wow. That's super neat. Does Winston have a favorite song or impression that he likes to do that he could share a little bit of it for us today?
Yeah. You want to do one?
Yeah, okay, I'll do one. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come.
That's Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
So we just did that. Julius did that.
Yeah, I can do them all.
Yeah.
Giving Julius a run for his money, Winston.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, I'm curious. So in the past few months, we've seen your name in the titles on different things people were sharing around, and about you and the Mirage and relocating theaters. Could you clear that up and kind of share that with us?
I'm out of here, man. No, I'm not talking. I'm not talking about this.
Yeah, okay, you go. No, so that's kind of a funny story. So from about September of last year, I had been approached by the MGM, not the Mirage, but the MGM, and they said, we are so honored that you've been a part of this company for so many, this company and this family, and we would love for you to stay with us for as long as you want. And obviously, the city of Vegas is proud of you. And so, but would it bother you if we want to use the theater that you're in for other types of entertainment? And they said, would it offend you or hurt your feelings if we moved you? And I said, absolutely not. I mean, I've been there for 10 and a half years. And by the time we do the move, I'll be there 11 years. I'm very proud of that. And they said, well, it's not like, every other entertainer in Vegas has gone through the same thing. You know, they play one venue for a while, and almost none of them get to stay in the same venue for that long, though, for 11 years. And so I'm like, great, man, it'd be kind of fun anyway, you know, because, you know, 11 years in the same place, it gets a little stale for me as far as, you know, the restaurants that I can go to and everything. So we started talking about different places to move to. And we were going to make a big announcement, and it wasn't going to be, I didn't get fired from the Mirage. That was not the way it was. They wanted to, I had a contract that went through 2022, and they just said, can we do away with this contract so that we can get you into another casino, another room? I said, absolutely. So this is all going to be a positive thing, and we're going to make a big announcement. Well, an employee that quit was privy to that information, and they decided they wanted to try to hurt me. So they went to the press and tried to make it into Terry Fator gets fired. And I'm like, and I wanted so badly to come out and start talking, but all my manager and my press agents, they're all like, just don't say anything. Just leave it alone. And, you know, it died away pretty quickly. And then, of course, we were going to make the big announcement probably in March or April. And then, of course, COVID shut everything down. Yeah. And so there's a probably 3 to 5 rooms that we're looking at that we're very interested. I think there's one that is the front runner. I'm not going to mention what it is now because I don't want to put people on a wild goose chase because I don't know if it's guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So but yeah, it was never that Terry Fator got fired. It was that I was going to move. I was going to find a new home, and I'm happy with that. I love playing Vegas. I like doing the road shows too, though. I don't think I ever want to stop doing road shows. I like working. I like performing. And I get so many letters and emails from people all over the country, all over the world, actually. And I haven't been able to do international, but I want to, where they say, my 96-year-old grandmother or grandfather wants to see you so bad, but there's no way I can come to Vegas. And when I get those emails and those letters, I immediately send it to my agent and I say, can you get me into that area so they can come and bring their grandma or their grandpa to it? So, I'm all about my fans. I love my fans so much. I'm so appreciative. And I realize everybody can't travel to Vegas, and so that's why I keep doing road shows, and I always will. I love it.
Wow. Well, I'm curious, how many characters do you have in your show in Vegas? Oh my gosh,
I think at last count I was doing 18 characters. Maybe even more, maybe 21. It was crazy. I was doing double puppets. And the way that happened, that happened about 3 years ago, I had surgery on my right shoulder. I had a calcium deposit in my and it was causing me excruciating pain. And so they did surgery, and I had a week off, and I'm thinking, no problem. I heal fast. I've always been a fast healer. No problem. I'll have the week to recover, and then I'll start my show on Monday. And I get up to do the rehearsal after the week off, and I couldn't even move my arm. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've got a show. And so I said, okay, everybody, I had never done a puppet with my left hand in my life. Never. I didn't even know if I could. I said, all right, everybody, move the stand, move everything over. We're going to do everything on the left hand. And I'm going to keep this hand. I'm going to keep my right hand, because right here on my mic stand, I'm just going to hold onto the mic stand so I can keep it still. And I did the show that night left-handed, and I'm like, wow, I guess I can work left-handed. So after that happened, I started doing. I'd done a little bit of work. I did a Bing Crosby and a David Bowie where I was doing Little Drummer Boy, and I had this David Bowie puppet made with left-handed triggers and left-handed controls. But I never did a very good job at it. I mean, I was like, it was in a few shows at Christmas. It'll be fine. I don't need to perfect this. Mostly. But then I really started working. I found that I was able to do the double puppets, and so it's a lot of fun. It's great because I can do all these, these wonderful different. I'm able to do like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis and Willie Nelson and Dougie, and it's great. It's really fun.
Well, and what's great about your show too is that you've got so many different characters, but you're not really. It's amazing because from the audience perspective, you don't feel like you're missing anything, but your show is so packed with so much content, so many different impressions and characters and songs, and like what you say, where you've got 2 puppets and you've got the Rat Pack in there, and it's just phenomenal. Can you talk a little bit about how your traveling show differs from your Vegas show?
Yeah, it's really different. It's less produced, less production. There's more. It's more of an intimate thing. I don't do a lot of the double puppets. It's more. It's just a really different feel. And the reason I did that on purpose, because I told the folks at the Mirage, at first they were like, we don't want you to do road shows. And I said, well, what if I do a completely different show and I kind of make it an hour and a half advertisement for what they might see in Vegas? So I only do about, 6 different characters. In the routines are more drawn out. It's still just as funny and just as fun. And I still do a lot of fun impressions and everything, but it's just a really different feel. And I don't have live musicians on the road, and I do have live musicians in Vegas.
And is your roadshow? I think I heard somewhere that you kind of go through your story into entertainment in your roadshow.
I used to. That was something I did for a couple of years. I did I was trying to put together, not necessarily go to Broadway. I never had any aspirations to do Broadway. I'd love to. It'd be fun at some point, but that was not my. But I wanted it to have a Broadway feel, because Broadway shows they do touring, and so I thought it'd be kind of fun to. I hadn't really done much acting since I was young. And I thought, I'm going to make a real theatrical production and kind of make it a Broadway feel of this. And so I dressed up I was raised as a janitor. And so I dressed up in a janitorial, coveralls, and I had a mop, and I had pretended the mop was my microphone. Yeah. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was a lot of fun. But I'm antsy. I don't like to keep the same show. I see, I know some people have shows that they've been doing for 30 years, and man, not me. I like new material and new content. And, I've talked to some people, and they're just like, some guys, and they're like, I don't understand why I can't get more popular. And I look at their stuff, and they're still doing the exact same thing they were doing in if you're doing Bill Clinton jokes, you need some new material, and right. So it takes a lot of work. Luckily, I tend to be a lazy person. I like being lazy. I say that, but then my brain never stops. So, but I would much rather not work than work. Let's put it that way. And so when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do, as soon as we get up, is I make the bed. And here's why. I hate making the bed. I really hate making the bed. Angie couldn't care less. She's like, I don't care. We're going to sleep on it again anyway. She's not one of those that needs it. And she's like, why do you do that? And I told her, I said, because if I start the day doing something I hate to do and I don't want to do, then I've already set the tone for what my day is going to be like. I know that I can do something I don't want to do. And that means when it comes time to sit down and start working, I love playing, but I love performing. I don't like writing, and I don't like rehearsing. But if I start the day doing something I don't want to do and making myself do it, then I've already set the tone of what kind of day I'm going to have. So a little advice for folks out there.
I love that. We have a comment from John and Crystal McLennan. They said, Terry, when you're doing so many shows, when do you make time to think and create new stuff?
I always think and create new stuff. My brain never stops. And now that I had notepads when I was younger, but now I have my iPhone. As soon as I come up with an idea, I immediately grab my iPhone and I go to my notes and I write it down, because I forget. I'll come up with the most brilliant idea in the world. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a great thing. And if I don't write it down tomorrow, I'm like, what was that idea? Oh my gosh. So I always write it down. And if it's an idea for a puppet, or an idea for a song, or an idea for, a character or a routine. So I always have to do that.
Sure. And we have another comment from Susan Frost. She said, Terry, you picked my friend to be Lady Gaga on stage a few years ago. Funniest show segment ever.
I love doing that. That's one of my favorite parts of the show, is when I bring somebody on stage. And I'm so happy that Steve Axtell started selling those masks. That's and man, I'm telling you, if you don't have one, you need to go to axtell.com and get yourself one of those masks. It's just going to be your best friend, because it's always funny. It's something, I've taken it. I don't know if you saw when I did it to Michael Strahan when I was on Strahan and Sarah. It's just fun. It's easy. It's I think every ventriloquist should own one of those masks. Every ventriloquist needs one.
It's phenomenal. Well, Terry, in wrapping up here, what do you hope to see from the future of ventriloquism?
I hope to see the same thing that's been happening. I mean, there are some, ventriloquism, people ask me, they say, but when I first won America's Got Talent, people said, do you think ventriloquism is a dying art? Mm-hmm. And my response to that was, ventriloquism has never been a dying art. It's always had amazing performers and entertainers, always. Yeah. It's just that they weren't in the mainstream and they weren't being seen. People didn't look at, at ventriloquism as a viable art form for adults. And in spite of the fact that there have always been amazing ventriloquists for the adult intellect, and I don't mean dirty, I mean the adult humor intellect. Sure. And I got a lot of criticism back early on. Somebody said, "Why do you think people think ventriloquists are bad? Or all ventriloquists are bad?" And I said, "Well, when was the last time you saw a good ventriloquist?" What I meant was, the ventriloquists that come to the churches and do children's church, they're usually people that are playing around with it. They're not really, and that's the one thing that gets stuck in people's minds, is what they saw come to their elementary school. And I was not trying to insult those who do that, because there is a place for that. And it's a beautiful thing when they're doing it, especially if they're doing it as a ministry. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it's not going to fly on the Johnny Carson show. And it's not going to fly in the mainstream entertainment system. So I was not insulting. I was stating a fact. Mm-hmm. And so what I love now is that I think that the explosion of ventriloquism, starting with Jeff Dunham and his phenomenal success, and then myself, I'm honored to be a part of that. Yep. And Darcy Lynn, and for every one of those of us who has found amazing success in the mainstream, there are, I believe, 100 Dan Horns who are popular in the vent community, but have never gotten their due. Dan Horn is one of the most phenomenal, amazing, incredible, talented, hilarious, technically perfect ventriloquists. Yeah. And he has never found that mainstream success. And I want him to desperately. I think he deserves to. But the thing is that one of the things that happened to me was that I finally stopped caring about wanting to get rich and famous. That was something I always dreamed of. But once I realized that, and I turned 40, I said, "Oh, this is never going to happen. Who's ever going to care about a 40-year-old ventriloquist?" And I really meant that. Right. And I said, doesn't matter. I want to be the best ventriloquist in the world for me. When those first graders that I'm performing for, because I was doing a lot of elementary schools, when they're 50, I want them to be telling their grandkids, when I was in your age, I saw the best ventriloquist I'd ever seen in my life. And I wonder where he is right now. And so it became less about getting the recognition and more about being the best for me, and being, because I wanted to be the best for my own sake and for the sake of the people that were watching me, whether it was 20 or a 0. Mm-hmm. And so it really changed, because then I was no longer unhappy with where I was. I was happy. And like I said, you asked me what I would be doing if I hadn't found America's Got Talent. I'd be doing the exact same thing I was doing before. I loved it. Wow.
Absolutely great. Well, wow. Well, Terry Fator, thank you so much for sharing your story and being a part of Landon Live. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, and thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.